Welcome. In this video, we are going to take a look at Chapter 5, Images. In this chapter, we will cover images for the web, how to get images, and there's a previous video in Blackboard on how to get images from Google Images. So if you haven't watched that video, I would encourage you to do that. Choosing an image editor, saving your images, inserting images on a page, offering alternate text, specifying image size, scaling images with the browser, scaling images with an image editor, and then adding icons to your website. So let's take a look. So images for the web. The book goes through and talks about format, and basically there are three different types of images that the web supports. JPEGs, PNGs, and GIFs. GIFs are generally used for things like logos, line art, those types of things that can be scaled without really changing the quality. JPEGs are used more for photographs, things with millions of colors. The nice thing about JPEGs is you can control the compression rate, and you can change the resolution, which is the compression, so that the file sizes are not super large without losing a lot of quality. And then PNGs are relatively new, and they're the best of both worlds. I really like to use PNGs whenever I can. You get the best of GIFs and JPEGs when you're using a PNG. So a lot of the image types and things like that you're going to learn in web graphics class. But we'll go through some of this stuff. So color, most computer monitors can display millions of colors. This wasn't always the case. It used to be we always supported 72 pixels per inch. Most monitors still don't go higher than that. If you want your images to be crisper and clearer, you can certainly go higher than that. But you get to a certain point where you're just adding file size and not really gaining anything on quality or clarity on the monitor. So that's something you want to keep in mind. Size and resolution. Resolution is what we just talked about. 72 pixels per inch up to 100 pixels per inch. When you get up to 300 pixels per inch, that's print quality. Typically, we don't worry about print on the web. This is a digital format. If we have something that we really want our users to be able to print, we can put it into a PDF file or something like that and then make that quality bigger and better. As far as screen resolutions go, 1024 by 768 is still a very popular screen resolution. Most monitors today go much higher than that, but we still support that, which gives us about 1,000 pixels of screen width from left to right before there's scrolling. And we never want to have horizontal scrolling. So for the most part, we want to stay within those parameters. As far as speed goes, it used to be we worried a lot about download times because everybody was on dial-up. But today, most people are on high-speed internet connections, and speed just isn't as much of a factor as it used to be. Now, we don't want to put out, 3, 4, 500 megabyte sized images or gigabyte images because that certainly would slow down the loading of pages. But for most of what we're going to do, speed is not as big of a concern as it used to be, especially with images. When you get into video and things like that, that's different. So transparency. Both PNG and GIF allow transparency. JPEG does not. So that's why I was saying PNG is kind of the best of JPEG and GIF together, because you can pretty much do everything to a PNG that you can do to both GIFs and JPEGs. Animations. Animation images can be saved as GIFs, but not JPEGs or PNGs. Stay away from animated images. They're just annoying on the web. So getting images, again, I'm going to refer back to the Google Images video in Blackboard. It shows you how to go out and get images, but you should read through this. And then as far as choosing an image editor, the industry standard is Photoshop for sure. Photoshop's very complex. It's a huge program. It's very expensive. In here we've been using Pixlr. It's an online editor. I like it for what we need to do. You know, if you want to get into building your own images and doing things, certainly Adobe is the way to go. But for us, I think Pixlr is a really good option. And then saving your images. You know, you can convert images from JPEG to PNG and back and forth, and we've looked at that in Pixlr a few times, or at least we've looked at Pixlr for cropping and changing the size of images. So I'm going to go to Pixlr right now again, and I'm going to do the Pixlr editor. And while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to go to Google Images, and I am going to look for animals. And I can see there's a bunch of different animals out here. Let's see. Let's do the little deer here. So I'm going to save this. And I need a new folder. I'm going to do 5-1. And I can see it's a JPEG. So I've saved it. And my Pixlr isn't loading. There we go. So now I'm going to open that image. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder called IMG. And I'm just going to drag that image in there. And I'm going to open it. Okay, so I've got a very clear, bright image here. First thing I'm going to do is check my image size, and I can see it's 1,000 pixels by 667. So what I want to do is I want to save the image, but I'm going to save it as a PNG. So I'm going to change the format here, and I'm going to leave the name, and I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to click Save. So now I've got this image as a PNG. So what I'm going to do is then I'm going to go into image size. And I'm going to change the image. And I'm going to keep constrained proportions on. That's very important. We don't want to skew the image. But I'm going to change this to 350 pixels wide and make it much smaller than it was. And then I'm going to save it again. And I'm going to keep it as a PNG. And I'm going to change the name to Fawn SM for small and save that. And my browser's working very slow right now. I don't know why that is. So I'm going to create a brand new page in brackets. I'm going to go File, New, and then File, Save As. I'm going to go to my new folder, and I'm going to save this as index.html. So let's go through and create our basic structure. Doc type. And then HTML, language, English, and our head. Then inside of our head section, let's go ahead and create our meta tag. And our char set, UTF-8, and our title. And our title is going to be Animal Pictures. Okay. Then in our body, let's go ahead and create a header. And inside of our header will be an image, which I don't have just yet. And then after that, we're going to do an article. And inside the article, we'll do a section. Inside the section, we will do an H1. And we'll do wildlife. Then we will do another section. And inside that section, we will do another H1. And we will do domestic. Okay, so we have wildlife pictures and domestic animal pictures. And what I want to do is I just want to post some pictures of animals, but I want them all to be about the same size. So I remember my image size on my first picture is 350 wide. So I want to do 350 wide and it's 233 high. The width is more important to me than the height, but I want to remember that width and height for my code. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create an image. So I'm going to do the image element, a space, src for source equals the img folder and a /, and I'm going to do fawn sm.png. And then I'm going to do an alt for accessibility, that's alternate text. It's a fawn picture. Then I'm going to do width, 350 pixels. Actually, I could just do 350. Well, I'm going to put the pixels in, I guess. And then height, and remember I wrote these down before, is 233. I'm going to do a space and a close, and I'm going to save that. And then let's take a look at it in the browser window. And there it is, wildlife, and there's my picture of my deer. Okay, so that's all I coded so far. So we took a JPEG and we saved it as a PNG, and we didn't lose any quality by doing that. And that's something certainly that Pixlr can do. The book talks about Fireworks. That's another image editor. It used to be that Fireworks and Dreamweaver and several other Flash, those were all Macromedia products, and Adobe bought them out. So Adobe was faced with, do we keep Fireworks because we already have Photoshop and they're very similar, but they chose to do that, and they've gone a little bit in different directions. Fireworks is more for the web, but Photoshop can do everything for the web too. So inserting images on a page. We just did that, and what we're going to use is the image element, IMG, we're always going to use an SRC attribute. The SRC is the source. That tells the browser where this image file is located so that the browser can load the image file on the page. Okay, so without the SRC, it wouldn't render on the page because the browser wouldn't know where or what file we were loading. So we always need that. It's a good idea to put the width and height in. That way, sometimes if you don't do that, the image can flicker when it's loading, and generally you don't have a problem, especially with today's high bandwidth, but it's a good idea to do that. And then alternate text is a must. That is something that's required on every image for accessibility. And if I see that you didn't include alt text on an image, that will be taken off in points. So we want to do that every time. It's vitally important. So images are great on a big screen with a fast connection, but they can be less useful and problematic on handhelds, phones. Not as much today, but the biggest thing is for screen readers, they can read that alt text where the person looking at that with a screen reader has no idea what that image is without the alt text. So it's incredibly important to include that. So specifying image size. So sometimes when you load a web page, you see the text first, and then when the images load a few minutes later, and we're talking about microseconds here, the text jumps around to accommodate them. This happens because the size of the image is not specified in HTML. So you get that flickering, and we don't want that. So for the most part, we always want to specify the size in our HTML code, but you need to make sure you get the size from your image editor. Like if your image is 500 by 300 and in HTML you put 400 by 200, you don't want to do that. You don't want to resize your images in HTML code. You can do it, but you don't want to do it because it will make your images look like garbage, and you don't want that. And I know the book's going to take you through and talk about how to do that, but I don't want you to do that. And it talks about Photoshop and how to specify the size of your image. And we're just going to do height and width. And you notice that they didn't put pixels in here, and I did. I'm old school. I like to do that. But if I took the pixels out, the browser assumes that pixels are what we always use for web measurements, and it wouldn't change this. So I can save it and refresh it. You can see it's exactly the same. So you don't need to put the pixels in. I guess we'll go with that. Scaling images with a browser. Again, I want you to read through this and look at it, but it's not something we will typically do. The image editor is what we will do. So let's go out and get another image. So I've got a bunch of images here. What I'm really looking for is a banner sized image. So I want something long and narrow that I can either turn into a banner or create a banner out of it. So let's take a look here. When I put in banner, of course, we get a lot of clip arty type stuff, which I don't like, but I love this cougar here, so I'm going to use this one. So I'm going to save this image and put it in my images folder, and I'm going to just name it cougar. So what I want to do is I want to open this in my online editor. So I'm going to close my deer picture. I don't have to, but the more you have open, the more cumbersome it gets and the more resources it uses. So here I've got my cougar, and I'm going to take a look at my image size. And I can see it's 1280 by 375. So what I want to do is I want to make this 1000 pixels. And I want to make it not so big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose my crop tool, and I'm going to crop this. Actually, I don't want to crop it that way. I want to crop it this way because the head's already cropped off. So I'm going to make this 250 height-wise. Then I'm going to click crop again and say yes. And what I want to do, and this is, remember I'm doing this on the fly here. I'm just going to add some text here. Change my color. To white. And I'm going to change my font. And I'm just kind of looking for something. Oh, let's do that. And we'll change the size. And we'll do OK. Okay. So let's save this. And I'm going to change it to a ping. And I'm going to call it Cougar Small. And I'm going to click Save. Put it right there. And it's saved. So now what I want to do is go back to my code, and I'm going to go up inside my header. And I'm going to do something a little bit different here. So I'm going to do an H1. And inside the H1, I'm going to do an image. So img src equals quotes img folder / Cougar Small. And then I'm going to do an alt Cougar banner. And I'm going to do height equals, and I don't remember my height, so I need to go back in here and do image size. 251 actually is what it is. I meant to do it 250, but and width I know was 1000. And then I'm going to do a / my space and / in my bracket. Okay, and then I'm going to save this. So what I did was I wrapped my image in an H1. So my H1, my alternate text actually becomes my H1. So I have an H1 up there because I didn't really want any text up there. I just wanted my picture. So let's see how this looks. And there we go. I've got my image up there. I've got my deer picture. So let's keep going here. And what I want to do is I want to go back to, I'm going to do wild animals. And I want to remember that I want to keep my pictures around that 350 and 233. So here's a raccoon. I'm going to save the image. Raccoon. Then I'll get a few more. Here's some wolves. I'll save those. And then I need to take them into my editor. Oh, this keeps crashing for some reason. And I'm going to open an image, and I'm going to first do my raccoon. And I just closed it by accident. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is change my image size to 350. And that actually works out perfect. It was 234. I needed it to be 233. I'm not going to worry about a pixel. And I'm going to save it, and I'm going to change my format to PNG. And I'm going to call it Raccoon SM for small. And then I'm going to open another image, and that is going to be my wolves. Change the size from 800 wide to 350. And this one's 263, so I need to crop it down to 233. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the bottom and see how close that's good enough. And I'm going to crop it, say yes. And then I'm going to save this as a PNG and call it wolves small SM. Okay, now let's go back to our code. And what I want to do is I want to basically put my images in here. So I'm going to, under wildlife, going to put my wolves picture in. And change my alt text. I just copied and pasted. It's probably good for you to retype the code just to get practice. I'm just doing this to save time. And you have to make sure you go in and change everything. And then I want to do my raccoon. And I'm going to save that. And then we'll look at this in the browser. I'll refresh, and there are my pictures. Perfect. And then next I would do my domestic animals. But let's get back to the chapter now. Adding icons. Icons are just smaller thumbnail versions, and we'll cover some of those when we do the chapter on links. So that's it for images. If you have any questions on chapter 5, email me, kretz@fvtc.edu. Thank you.